Welcome to Between the Details, the podcast where event planning gets real. I'm Jessica Ralph, owner of Parties a la Carte.
And I'm Aaron Lockwood, owner of Lockwood Studios. Each week, we'll be sharing insider tips, honest advice, and behind-the-scenes truth for both vendors and clients.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our next episode. We are so delighted to have Jacob and Johnny here from TFW Design. Thank you, gentlemen, for both being here today.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be
Thank
here.
Thank you for making the drive over, too. And
of course, we're so excited.
Thankfully, the traffic didn't kill you guys.
For once, you were on time.
Oh my God.
Early.
Not the shade just
It was meant to be here,
Don't
right?
say that in public. Oh my God.
No, you're always on time for work.
know.
For work,
I know.
you're always on
It's the
time.
traffic.
Yeah, it's just like
You can always
the,
blame the traffic.
the
It's okay.
social part.
Literally.
No, we're excited to be here. So thank you so much for making us part of this amazing project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to start off. I want to first kind of understand, you guys have an interesting background. You guys are both architects and interior designers. What lessons do you think helped shape who you are now in your business?
That's a great question. Well, yeah, like you said, our background comes from architecture and interior design. Jacob and I met in college about, I would say, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
We don't age ourselves on here.
Well,
A while ago.
Yeah, we just use
yeah,
things like
let's
a
say
while
that was
ago.
a while ago. So that's where, our background in design comes from. Our, story with the business pretty much started back in 2020, right after COVID. We were both living in New York City. I was working for an interior design firm. He was working for hospitality. And then, COVID happened. We lost both of our jobs. And that's when we, both regrouped and said, what's next for us? What should we do? So initially, our plan and idea was to have a cute little plant store, nothing too crazy, maybe flower bouquets on the side. But flowers was not the main thing for us. So that's pretty much how we started. I would say we, did farmers markets and collections and like started
E-commerce.
our own little flower store, but like
Okay.
everything was online. But again, I think it was just a thing where I was like, okay, we need to do something that's, more than this,
Sure.
something that's actually creative. And then we started doing, like he said, collections with models and like super elaborated videos for Valentine's and Mother's Days. And
We literally use flowers as fashion. Like,
Yeah.
we'll do
I
like a
love that.
whole
Yeah.
collection, and we had different models, different
Zodiac.
arrangements.
Yeah.
A Zodiac collection we had.
So that's pretty much how we started putting the name out there. And then back
And you were
in...
based in New York?
No, that was in Orlando. Right?
In Orlando,
So you come
already.
to
Okay.
Orlando at that
So
point.
that was the thing when we were in New York, and then we were like, we need to do something that's different. I love interior design, but I wanted to do something else.
Sure.
So I was like, I think we need to get out of New York because New York was pretty rough
during COVID.
during COVID,
sure.
and
Yeah.
Not like Florida. We were.
No.
We were.
Oh, I
on
know.
the
Both
bus.
our
Been kind of a
Yeah.
breath of
Yeah.
fresh air.
Both
Coming
of
down
our
to Florida
families-
is such a different.
yeah, both of our families were here, so we would call them and be
Okay.
like, okay, what are you guys doing? And they were like, living life.
Yeah.
So I was like, Jacob, I think
We're
it's time to
crying.
go back to Orlando. And, thank God we did because, look at where we're now. So, yeah. The
That's
idea
incredible.
was born in New York. The business officially started in Orlando.
I love that.
So that's when the love of floral and flowers and all that
Yeah.
kind of started.
Yeah,
then.
for the
So-
first 2 years, we pretty much did retail. That was, year 1 and 2. And then our very first wedding was back in 2022. I would say
That was a wedding that changed
the whole
everything.
thing for
Okay.
us.
Okay.
That's when we realized, like, okay, after setup, we were like, wow, was that? I love it. Let's do it again. So yeah, that's
So is
how
that
we
what
started.
you mean by, like, on your website? I know it says 2020 kind of rewired everything for
Correct.
you guys. So is
Yeah.
that kind of the journey?
Yeah, both
that you're
personally and
referring
like business wise, we were doing something that's completely different to what we do today.
Yeah.
We were living in a different city. So I think, COVID was,
It wasn't bad for us.
I
And
mean,
it-
not,
it-
don't
in
say
a
that,
way-
but
Yeah.
it
No, but
was
in a way-
beneficial in a way
Beginning.
that,
No, but in a way, COVID, like, there's a before and after.
Yeah.
from COVID.
Yeah,
some-
because otherwise we would just, we would still be in New York.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would be, doing my interior
the
design thing,
business
and you
was
would be
born
doing something
I bet
else.
you were a great interior designer, though.
No, I am.
Yeah.
Not to brag, but
I love that. I can totally
Yeah.
see it. I don't,
Yeah, yeah, and it's it's totally correlated to
I might
what we
have to
do
steal
today.
you and make you come to my house after this.
It's still correlated to what we do today
Sure.
because I still use a lot of those tools that I learned at school. But yeah, that's pretty much the story of how we started.
And you
I
found your
also feel,
passion.
and I feel like inspiration a lot in our industry
Yeah.
comes from fashion and interior
Correct.
design.
Yeah.
It's not really coming from other weddings.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it really does come from like, the tones and textures of fabric and material or layering that you see in those two worlds.
And even the trends are more towards interior design than even weddings.
Yeah.
Like
Lately, yeah.
All the inspiration we're getting from the brides are more interior design, more about materials, textures, than just like the centerpieces itself or
Correct.
the floral selection.
The overall experience, like
Yeah.
everything nowadays is more immersive. It's like you're walking into this new,
It's a bad word these
I
days.
feel like even I feel like
scary word.
even the hotel designs are that way
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
too, where like back in the day it was just like a boring ballroom,
Yeah.
and you had to like start from scratch.
Totally.
But now even the way that the hotels are designed, they're thinking about the flow and how
Yeah.
people move
Yeah.
through the spaces and from the moment you walk in the door and all that. So
Yeah.
I'm sure having that eye and being able to incorporate what you guys love about design and architecture into what the hotels or the ballrooms have to offer
Yeah.
and just bring it to life that's incredible. So
And it's actually very interesting the way we work together when we're designing something, or an event. Or my background is architecture, so I'm more about does it function? How are people gonna walk through the space? And Jody's more about
I'm
the
the
beauty.
opposite. I'm like Jacob, beauty over function. I
Because-
don't care. They're
because
gonna
that's-
sit on a comfortable chair. Let it happen.
We get to a good
it's
balance.
only an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's just.
But we get to a
But
good balance.
you have to
because
think about function too.
Sometimes
Yeah.
he will come with these ideas. I'm like, people cannot walk through that table. It's like, yeah, but it looks beautiful. Think about the shot. It is not only about the
It's
shot.
always
So
about the
that's
shot for me.
that's
I'm
how
kidding.
we kind of balance everything out, because architecture is more about the space,
Sure.
like the dynamic, the functionality, and Johnny's more about, okay, now let's create some emotion in the space.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but I love that combination because I also feel the same. Like as a planner, we think about the logistics of things, right? Like how are they getting in and out of the, like right now the couches are a big thing for seating, right? But it's like, can the guests get in and out?
Yeah.
How are they facing? What's the experience
Yeah.
like for them?
Yeah.
But we also want to think about helping the bride's vision come to life, right?
Yeah.
Because the bride or the couple is usually coming to us, or even for social events or corporate events, like they're coming to us with, hey, we want it to look like this. But I think it becomes our job to make it look like that and
Yeah.
better, right? But also be functional.
Absolutely.
So it's good that you
people
have that.
flow through the
Yeah,
space
that
and-
combo.
yeah.
Yep.
So that's really cool.
What do you think makes you the most passionate?
You wanna
What's
start?
your why?
Sure, my why. I think throughout the years, this business has become my creative outlet. We're both very creative, and we feel the need to do something with our hands all the time. So I think, which is a great way to make money, like I use my business as my creative outlet. It's like I have so many ideas in my head, and for creative people, most of the time, until you don't make those ideas happen, you cannot be in peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we use it's very exciting to me meeting with the client, seeing what they want, and just making sure that I'm able to make that happen with my own ideas, and make them happy at the end of the day. But I just get very creative with my own business.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I love that.
Well, there's that old saying that if you do what you love, you'll never
Yeah.
work a day in your life.
That's
So
true.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
incredible
true.
if you can find what you love.
I don't know about that.
No, I think,
I mean,
yeah.
But in a way,
the
yeah.
satisfaction
Yeah.
of it. There's going to be hard days and you work
Yeah.
hard for sure.
Yeah.
But when you find what you love to do for work, it's the same with myself with, doing the photography and the
Yeah.
videography. Like it is challenging and it's very hard work, but at the end of the day, it's like what I love to do.
very rewarding.
So to think about the alternative of like sitting in a cubicle typing on a
absolutely
spreadsheet
not.
or
Yeah.
something all day,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that would just like ruin me. So.
And when you get back home from an event, you're exhausted, but you feel pride.
It usually
Yes.
hits
There's
the
a
next
reward.
day when you see the pictures and you're like, oh, we did that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
It takes me so long to like come down after an
Yeah.
event,
Yeah.
like 2 to 3 hours, because I'm just so amped up.
Mm-hmm.
I love the end. I love getting to
Yeah.
see the
The end
vision
result.
come
Yeah.
together and like everyone's happy and excited. And this year of work potentially that we've done,
Totally.
it's like it's there. It's there, and it was beautiful, and everybody was happy, and they
Yeah.
had a great time. It's the best feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's addictive. I feel like
It is
a little.
absolutely
Yes.
addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Sometimes I can't even help myself. Like I'm already downloading. It's like 1:00 in the morning. And I'm still
Yeah.
here downloading the photos and video to
Oh,
look
yeah.
at it and just
Yeah.
relive it because it is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
once you're kind of riding that high, it's like
Yeah.
so cool to like have been part of
Yeah.
that. And so
Yeah.
that's awesome. So floral and architecture, you incorporate the two. So
Yeah.
how important do those go together? Like say if you were to take floral out of the design completely, does it still have the same experience or is that just like a huge
I
part
would
of
say, my thoughts on that would be 50-50 because let's talk about the event design part. I think that, yes, you can absolutely rock an event with only, the event design portion of it and no flowers at all, but you have to make sure that every element is perfectly aligned so it doesn't feel there's a void and there's something missing. Because like I was, telling you guys earlier, you could, 100% design an event with no flowers and still have a beautiful centerpiece on the table that's non-floral. But I think you just have to find the way to implement those creative ideas into the design so it feels like, a full picture.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I throw flowers wherever I can because I love them.
We're
and
biased.
I feel
Yeah.
that they're important.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think there's a way that you can 100% have an event with no flowers. Just make sure that everything is perfectly aligned.
Have
So
you
it
done
looks-
that or is it always
I think we have,
integrated
yeah.
with-
I think like a couple of times.
Yeah. Okay.
In 5
Yeah.
years.
Okay, but that's not your passion,
No.
like the way.
I mean, I
you love
like
to
it, but
do
like I said
It needs
before,
to
I
be the
think
right event.
Yes,
it has to be the
exactly.
right event. That's correct. And you would usually see that more in the corporate world.
That's what I
right?
was going to ask.
And then for weddings and like birthday celebrations, that's when you can get a little bit more creative with flowers.
Yeah.
I think flowers add so much to the space, right?
Yes.
Like the textures, the
Soften
tones.
it up,
They and then a lot of times they bring things together, right?
Totally.
Because with flowers, you can put any combination of texture and color
Yeah.
together, and it really kind of is like the bow on top,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
It really finishes it.
Yeah.
Do you design flowers first, or do you do the design first and then do the flowers?
I think we'll go back to the same answer. Like it's half and half. We go back half and half. I think sometimes it can be a table lamp that just triggers a creativity or a picture or a fabric, or it just depends. Again, we're very biased. We love flowers. So we are always designing the space, thinking on where we can put flowers in a very like specific way. If we want to come up with a crazy structure or a ground supported arrangement. However, nowadays we are creating the layouts and the events and the design based more into the over experience.
Okay.
We want to think in the big picture instead of just, okay, I love this centerpiece, let's put it here. But we'll always try to incorporate flowers wherever we can. We always thought that flowers are supposed to enhance and complement the design instead of competing against it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm always amazed at what a variety of flowers and floral that there is. And just
Yeah.
to see, I mean, even for as many events and things that I've shot over the years,
Yeah.
like I'm always surprised to see them, you know, like a color I didn't expect to see or the way that they're like put together into an arrangement or something.
Yeah.
So I think that must
Even
be like,
even to this date, like there are flowers that I'm like, okay, where did that come from? Like I've never seen this before, and I think it also depends on the city, the market. For example, we recently had an event in New York City, and their flower market is just beyond.
I
You
bet
know, they
that's so
have
exciting.
so many like varieties and things that you would not expect to see at a flower market,
Yeah.
but they do actually exist. Prices, of course, they're like tend to be way higher because they come from Japan or the moon or whatever. You know, there's just like something that you've never seen before, and they're like $2,000 a stem, and you're like, oh, beautiful, but you're staying there.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take you.
Wow.
But yeah, I think it's just, you know, it depends on where you're buying and the market. But yeah, there are so many varieties out there.
I feel like clients are always very surprised when I tell them that the flowers really don't come from here.
Yeah.
They're really coming from all over the world,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like, you know, Holland and Japan.
Colombia.
And Colombia, Ecuador. Even like Australia, that's where a lot of like
Japan,
eucalyptus comes from
Yeah.
Australia, right?
Yeah.
Like tulips come from Holland, right? A lot. Like so I think I always feel like clients are always so shocked at that. And they don't understand the logistics of the flowers
Yeah.
getting here. It's like, no, you're bringing in all these pieces from around the world
right.
to make this bouquet. It's such a
And
cool
also
experience.
depends on the season. For example, like Chile, they do produce peonies, and their summer is the opposite to our summer. So we're pretty much having, this is summertime for us. Right now is winter for them. So it's just, it depends on the season, the country where you're getting the flowers from. I think it takes a minute for you to like understand how that clockwork situation is with, flowers, timing, seasons,
that
and all
must
of
have
that.
been a big like learning curve at the
Yeah,
beginning.
I know, and
to
I'm
start,
still
like figuring
like
all
up
that
to this
out.
date, I'm still there.
well, I think
learning.
it's always evolving.
It's evolving.
Right?
It's
Like,
always changing.
It's always
Yeah.
changing. I feel like before COVID, you could get peonies any time of
Yeah.
year. We'd almost gotten to the point like
Trader Joe's have them.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so cheap and so beautiful.
Yes.
Like now they just have Gerber daisies,
Yeah.
pretty much.
But now I feel like with after post COVID, which I can't believe we're still talking about COVID, but post COVID, I do feel like there are some gaps now.
Yeah. Mhm.
Where there's times where you cannot get certain flowers anymore like you could, because I think the smaller farms
Yeah.
and markets kind of went away.
Totally.
And it's just not as available.
Totally. And you pretty much get more of the basic flowers. And depending, like I said before, for us, the way that it works is that we have a particular wholesaler where we could source, our flowers from on a weekly basis. And then if there's something that's very particular or looks a certain way, or it was, pretty much requested by the client, we, get them from Holland. Of course, they have to like come
Still be able
through.
to-
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I was
just-
wondering about that, like how often a client would request a specific
Very
flower.
very,
or
very
very
often.
often.
color.
That happens very
Okay.
often.
Yeah.
Mostly for their, personal flowers, like a
Okay.
bridal bouquet. Like they
Okay.
might have something very specific in mind, and that's when you have to get resourceful and try to find
So
the
if
right.
you do it in a smaller quantity rather than like doing all the centerpieces out of
Well, that's
that,
another
or
thing
like-
that if that happens, which happens a lot, there's an increase in pricing because, of course, if you buy, from wholesaler pricing, you pretty much buy by the box. And then if you need to get something that's a smaller quantity, you're going to pay more for it. So
Okay.
it's
So
like I
there
said
are
before,
some
it's
things
tricky.
you have to-
You just have to
Wow.
learn how to like play with those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely challenging, I feel
That's
like.
the business side of things that
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to kind
Yeah,
of
that's where I
realize, like,
deal
yeah.
with in
That's
the
why
business.
I don't.
So you have to rein him in a little bit if he's wanting to
Yeah.
go over the top with something. So
From managing destination events, how do you do that? Like when someone wants you to come somewhere else, to New York or to
Yeah.
somewhere anywhere else, how is it
Well,
different from a Florida event?
Yeah, starting with Orlando, we get pretty much all the flowers sourced from Miami. We get them pretty much every Monday,
week.
Tuesday, Wednesday. For the Central Florida area, we just work in house and just travel. We've done Miami too in the past, and it's the same thing. We pretty much use our space, have a whole week of production there, and then just move all the trucks to South Florida. When it's out of state, for example, like you said, New York, we like to fly our flowers from Miami to whatever other city we're gonna be at.
And
So
you just get a warehouse space there, I assume.
Yeah.
yes, so in New York specifically, we know this floral company that they would let us rent their space every time we're there. So it's honestly easier than it sounds, and we've said this before. It has been easier for us to work sometimes outside of Orlando and outside of Florida than work in,
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just feel that New York it sounds scary because it can be scary, but we try to plan ahead so much that it becomes easy when we get there.
That's true.
Yeah.
And there's so many options. At least in Orlando, we have no options. Like if we forgot to place a flower
true.
order,
Right.
we're done.
Yeah. In New
We
York,
have
you just
nowhere
go
to
to the
run.
28th Street and
I
get
guess
whatever
that's
you
the
need.
give and take of like a big city is that
Yes.
you do
Yeah.
have to deal with that part of it, but
Yeah.
then like there's so many options.
Yeah.
So
And
once
as-
you get past the logistics,
Like at least
And as far as the process goes, it's just, like I said, we fly all the flowers from Miami to New York. We just go to LaGuardia, pick them up, drive them to the studio, and then the process is pretty much the same. You
same.
just like prep, process, make the arrangements, and go to, whatever venue you're
Delivery
at to
time.
deliver them.
okay.
And then obviously there's an associated cost with having you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Going
there's
outside.
pretty much like a travel fee and then all associated costs, that would come with that. Another thing in New York, it can get tricky. Driving through the city.
Sure.
The other day, I almost like slammed the truck against a bridge, but
You guys drive the
Yeah.
trucks
Yeah.
yourself? No way. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I would be scared to drive a small car in New York City. let alone
usually
a
if
truck.
it's a big production, there's 3 or 4 trucks.
Right.
So at least one of us have to be like, taking the wheel.
I would call not it.
and that would be him, not me.
That would be me.
Yeah. I'll
Wow.
be like, Jacob,
I'm
I'll
impressed.
see you there in my Bronco.
but at least in New York, it's also exciting because we don't have to fly all the recipe. We only fly their foundation,
The basics.
Okay.
the
Correct.
basics.
Okay.
You call it like Playa Blancas or the roses or the greenery. We just fly them from Miami to New York, and then we get to have the fun. Like we go to the flower market, we pick all the specialty blooms,
Yeah, that's
everything
fun.
that you cannot find on here in
Yeah,
Orlando
sure.
Or the Miami market.
But
See-
now, when we go to Ohio, we do have an event in Ohio once a year. Ohio is at least in Columbus where we go, it's a very small city.
Sure.
So we have no
Very
flowers.
limited flowers.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
know from personal experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there we
Scraps.
Yeah.
have scraps. And
Yeah.
very basic and traditional. Very
Scraps.
traditional. Let's
Yeah.
call it traditional.
Yeah, very traditional.
So there we have to fly everything
Wow.
Yeah.
to Ohio.
I was doing a personal event there, and I was
Yeah.
like,
I think I
would've-
remember you told. Wasn't that like a year ago?
not even. But I was like, what is happening? You cannot get anything here.
Yep.
They have like 2 floral wholesalers, and that's about it.
And if you don't have, and like I was calling after 11, and they're like, oh, sorry, no,
Yeah.
you can't get any flowers. I'm like, what do you mean?
11 a.m.?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was like with the basically, if you didn't have your order
Well,
in
that's
by
how
11,
New York is. But
you're
you have
done.
to be there at 5 a.m.
Oh,
because
yeah.
everything pretty much gets closed by 11.
And because they sell everything every day, so
Yeah.
you have to be there very early, which
Yeah.
it works for us because we go at 6 a.m., we get what we want, and we just go back to work.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
how many days before the event? Would it kind of
So
depend
usually,
on the
like
size of
he
the
said,
event?
the work starts at the studio with all the planning that takes to, bring all of this production to a different state. Once we get to the city, or like, it could be, New York City, whatever we're at, we fly the whole team with us. And then we just, like I said, go to either the studio or, to pick up the flowers at the airport and then go back to the studio. And then that's when the actual process starts. But to your question,
I was gonna say.
I think, we usually wrap it up within 5 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends on how big the,
So
the
very
scope
So like
is.
if it's
Very
like a
similar.
Saturday wedding, you're coming in
We would
on
start
like
on a Tuesday morning,
drive in,
yeah.
and then prepping,
And
and
then-
then,
yeah.
okay.
It's pretty much
so
the
travel
same.
does take you off the grid a little bit from
Lately,
being
what
back
we've
in
been
your-
doing, and I don't think I'm going back after because I've discover is the best, we should source our own freelancers from the city we're in. Like New
I
York
love that.
City, last time we had 23 freelancers to work with us
Okay.
at the Not Gala, and I did not fly a single person from Orlando, just one.
Wow.
And you save, so much in hotels,
Hotels,
food,
and
and,
travel, and food,
like,
yeah.
and you don't have to be everybody's mom. Like, go this way. Or it's just like that part
Because
changed.
they know the city.
Yeah, it changed the game for us. So I
And
was
it's
like,
very helpful
sorry
because
guys, but you might not be traveling anymore.
Here
And
and
it's
there.
also helpful
Here and
because
there,
they're
yeah.
locals. So if you're struggling, you're not local.
Right.
Yeah,
you're
they become
struggling,
like an actual tool for you.
They
to,
know
like,
how to help you.
Yeah.
Like it happened a lot this time. We needed so much stuff, and they were like, I know where to get it. Just give me a card.
Yeah.
And
I
they
was
will
like,
do
oh, I love
everything.
it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean,
works out
that
really well.
I'm sure that's like
Yeah.
so helpful instead of
Because
having
pretty
to
much
keep
with
track
this,
of like,
this big events, I love being, touching flowers every time I can. But when you have a big event, you pretty much become the orchestrator. You have to be, directing people on what to do. So it was very, good to have this team of
Local people.
that were, local
Yeah.
and knew about certain things that maybe we didn't know because we were not part of,
Yeah.
New York City.
take a few moving pieces off the
Yes.
board that
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have to juggle.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a
Exactly.
lot to orchestrate. Yeah.
Yeah.
On
It's a
top
big
of
team to
everything
manage.
else.
It is.
Yeah.
But, it played out really nicely.
Yeah.
and-
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah,
really
thank you.
gorgeous.
It was a lot of fun.
That's
A
right.
lot of stress, good stress, nothing bad, but it was fun.
I think it's because we care so much, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so much passion behind what we do
Yeah.
that it's like, yes, we're stressed, but we love it. And I can't
Yeah.
imagine it any other way. I
Correct.
always say you have to be a little crazy to be in this industry.
No, you have to.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you can't do
or
without
you
it.
become crazy.
I was gonna
Once you-
say, you're either are or become.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just
But
do a
there's
little,
no other way
just a
around.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has to be something,
Yes,
there.
because it's a tough industry.
It is.
Whether you're in florals or production or planning or photography, I think like you've got a very special moment of somebody's in your hands
Yeah.
that you're going to either make it or break it for
Correct.
them.
Yep.
And
It's like a
so-
once in a lifetime
yeah,
type
it's-
of.
yeah, and even if it's a
thing.
corporate event or a social event, like the amount of time and effort and money that client is putting in there, like you want to make sure it works for them. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think we all carry a lot of weight of that, right? Like
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we're executing something,
Beautiful.
beautifully for
Yeah.
them and giving
Yeah.
them their vision because
sure.
they've put so
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
much time and effort into it. So
And that's honestly what we try. Well, they know now, but what we try to explain to our team,
yeah,
like, this is not just work. This is some people's most important day.
Feelings.
People,
Yeah.
Feelings. You're like
Yeah.
dealing with feelings.
people
Yeah.
have been dreaming about this day since they were
Kids,
children,
yeah.
since they were kids. So you guys have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
It's not just work. You're not working at a restaurant. It's not someone's meal. It is not. These flowers are important.
Memories, feelings. Yeah. So
Like these pictures are gonna be
forever.
forever.
yeah. I always say I'm like part therapist,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
part,
and
part
yeah,
parent.
and we've talked about it, and that's kind of like the biggest difference a lot of times
Yeah.
between doing corporate work versus weddings. Not only are they also spending their own money, it's not the company's money,
Mm-hmm.
but they are much more personally invested in the dreaming and
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
vision and like
Yeah.
more emotions come into play
That's true.
and all that.
Yeah.
So it is a much different thing. So you find out quickly if you're made for this industry or not when you
Yeah.
start.
No, absolutely.
doing
Yeah.
so.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so true.
sure.
You have to have a thick
Can you make it
skin.
past the
Yeah.
90 days?
Like,
For sure. So how do some of these events like rank for you as far as like the ones that you're like the most proud of, or like why? Is it like you put the most effort into it, or
Yeah.
just the beauty of it, or like what would kind of rank as your top?
I mean, I think every single event has something special, and we try to learn from every single event. Like, there's always something where you can improve and be better at. But for example, we worked for NASA one time. It was so much fun. They
It's
kept
stressful.
postponing the launching so many times. I even got sick like for a week after
Oh
that
my
event because it
gosh.
was just so much. But it was so much fun.
And really a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, once in a
Exactly.
lifetime. It was
that's really cool.
something really really cool. Our Kansas we did together
Oh, that was
with
fun.
Amanda with
Yeah.
MMD, You guys killed it. It was so much fun. And
That was a dream. It
yeah,
was
and
a
I also
dream.
feel that when it's the three of us, we just have so much fun.
It's a dynamic, yes.
Yeah. I love Amanda. I love you. And,
Yes,
you know,
thank
it's
you.
just,
I love
yeah,
you too.
it's fun.
But no, that was
love
fun,
fun.
and I think that was really our first time
Working together.
right?
And what a way to start working together.
You can't go down from there.
Yeah.
I mean, so the Souchets are like my favorite, one of my favorite families, and I
Yeah.
love that we've been doing her events since she was, I think, 9 or 10 years
Wow.
old. So for me to get to do that and then get to do her quince, which is such a
Special moment.
a special
Yeah,
moment,
totally.
especially for for the Hispanic culture. And so and it was just like out of a dream. I mean, it literally out of a dream.
That's amazing.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was like an enchanted
Forever,
forest.
I think it'll be one of my top events.
Yeah.
Same for us.
Like I said before, like I said it earlier, I love flowers. Like I'm very particular about my recipes and how I want things to look. That particular, birthday celebration, the recipe and was so curated. We had so many different varieties, and
Yes.
I
So
went
many
crazy
flowers.
with that
Yeah,
recipe.
so many flowers.
So that's
We'll
why
have
it's
to
one of
see,
our
if we can get
favorites.
some pictures from it and
Yes.
throw it up on the
Yeah.
social post.
It was gorgeous.
So
Yeah.
people can get a
It's
visual.
so
of,
colorful
like,
and rich. It was
Yes,
just beautiful.
but
That's cool.
elegant and
Yeah.
timeless,
Elegant.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think it was
You can still look at it and it's like, okay,
Yes.
this is good.
yeah.
amazing.
Even though it was like 2 years ago.
I don't even know now.
Yeah.
It seems like forever.
No, it's-
but yeah, I
yeah.
think 2
When you
years.
do something like along those lines, do you have to take into consideration a little bit of the fragrance of the floral too? Like, does that
That's
ever
a
come
good
into
question.
play? Like, I'm
I have
curious
heard
about how-
a few other floral colleagues talking about that, like people
Yeah.
requesting, not to have certain flowers in the room because of, scents or
Mm-hmm.
allergies.
It happens to the lilies a lot.
I think it's the lilies the most.
Yeah, but I don't think us
We
as
don't
a
smell
company
anything anymore.
No, but I don't think we've had that. That
You're done. You're numb.
Smell blind now.
Some people will get into the room. It's like, oh my god, the smell. I'm like, I don't smell
Yeah,
anything.
we're pretty
Like,
much,
I don't
Immune.
smell anything
Kind
at
of
all.
used to it now.
I think also flowers, the scent of them is not the same as it used to be.
Right.
I think it's only
Yeah.
certain flowers that are
Yeah.
still very fragrant.
Yeah.
But the lilies kill me.
Oh,
Yeah,
those are
same.
really,
Oh,
really bad.
kill me.
Or baby's breath for me is one
Oh,
of the.
yeah. I don't
it's
do
so
baby's
bad.
breath,
That has
so
a
I don't know.
different-
Good.
Well,
Yeah.
thank
You
God.
did make me do it one time
What was it?
for
Oh, the corporate event.
Yes.
Yeah, with Ricky Martin.
yes,
I remember.
Yes. Yeah.
For the color.
Yeah,
For the-
for
yeah, the
no,
clouds.
for the clouds.
Yeah,
'cause
clouds.
we-
That was different.
It was,
Yeah.
but it made sense.
Yeah, it
and
was an
Right.
installation
and it was
like
in the
way.
ceiling.
Yeah,
But
That makes sense.
Everyone pretends like baby's
Yeah.
breath smells like cat pee.
it is so true.
Unless you have a good florist who's Febrezing it
Yeah.
and like doing all the things to it. It can have
Smells.
a cat
Yeah,
pee smell
yeah.
to it.
And my thing with baby's breath, particularly, I think you either go all in or you don't do it.
Yes.
Like I like it when it's like bulky looking,
Yes.
installations.
It has to be significant. I
Other
feel
than that, don't like spray it on
Spray it
little
into
things
the-
here and
yeah.
there because
Tell
it
'em.
looks.
Get 'em.
Please, do not.
I really only kind of remember like one or two events where I came in and the smell of the floral was like a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say that it's really not.
Yeah.
Like that
well,
big
for
of
us,
a
you're right.
factor.
I think we've become immune in
Yeah.
a way because
Yeah.
I don't
I guess
really.
roses have like kind of a
Some.
pretty strong
Some.
Garden
I
garden
think-
roses most.
Only some.
Okay,
They're the
I
ones
think
that
that's
usually
probably
have
what it
a
was.
stronger
Was it
scent.
was like a
Yeah.
And I guess
massive-
peonies too. You can.
Yes.
They have
Peonies.
a strong smell.
but a
Okay.
sweet,
A
like
good
sweet,
one,
Yeah,
yeah.
a good
Sweet
one.
peas, sweet peas
Sweet
are
peas,
definitely
definitely.
amazing.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you open the box, you actually smell it, but then it just goes away.
Yeah.
At least for us.
Your warehouse must smell like really good though.
I
Yeah.
guess.
People
We're-
first come to
It's a
visit.
combination of flowers and Fabuloso because the
let's
ladies
not-
love cleaning and I'm here for it.
And let's not forget all the good smells you guys bring.
Well, yeah, that's
yes, thank you. Like, I know. I was gonna say
awesome.
like Gucci and Chanel, but
You're gonna have to come up with your own line.
And I have
of,
like 100,000
fragrance.
candles
Yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah, I
the
can only
studio. So
imagine.
I'm like, there's a good combination of scents and
I love
smells.
that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
What do you think is the most shocking to clients price wise?
I would say yes, flowers sometimes are very shocking price wise for most clients. But I think one of the things that would shock them the most is labor, pretty much. What's
Okay.
associated with pre-production, delivery, setup,
Okay.
and trucking. And I mean, from their point of view, I can see where that not miscommunication, but where that misinterpretation can come from. Because if I'm a client, I'll be like, okay, I'm just paying for flowers. But if you give it a deeper thought, you're like, okay, how are the flowers getting to the venue? Who, who's processing the
Not
flowers?
even to the venue, but how are they getting from where they're coming from?
Correct.
Right?
Beginning of the journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think that's a thing that clients don't understand. It's like this flower was from a farm in another country. It had to come over here.
Correct.
Via airplane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has to go through customs. You have to order it in a certain amount of time to get it here.
Yeah.
Then it has to come to you. Then there's you have to process because they're all wrapped in certain ways and you have to process. You have to open them up.
Yeah.
There's
you
labor.
have to prep the bases.
Yes.
There's quality check. There's everything.
Yeah. There's just so much that I think it's not one day of work.
Yeah.
It's weeks and weeks and weeks
Absolutely.
of work.
And, the perfect companion for a flower arrangements are candles. So candle holders, hurricanes, votives, all of that needs to be perfectly polished and cleaned. And, that also takes a huge part of our, labor.
So do you stock like a whole inventory of those type of things,
We
or do you have to like
we do
acquire
have-
stuff for certain events, or like
We have a pretty, wide and decent inventory,
Okay.
and every other month, or also depending on the event, we like to incorporate new items. Like for example, if there's something very specific we need to buy, we're super flexible with that because we enjoy it. It's just like why reusing the same
adding
over
a
and
new
over and
thing to
over.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just we've stopped. I have to say we have
For a
stopped
while.
for like at least 3 months because it was getting a little out of control.
It's hard to not
I'm sure it's got to be kind
Yeah.
of fun though to like.
I
get
just like
new things
stopped
to-
looking, and he was like, "You need to stop with these crazy charges."
But I also think people don't realize that then that takes money because you now need a warehouse to house these
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
Like there's a cost that's associated with that. Then you need insurance for that. Then you need,
and we have a huge cooler that takes a
Yes.
huge chunk of the
Yeah.
electric bill.
Yeah.
But I think the candlelight.
Water. I
Water.
forgot about water.
I
Just,
think-
that's another thing that.
I think what you said about the candlelight, it's an item that people underestimate a lot.
Yes.
At least our clients. Fortunately, we have the planners to educate the client about
Yeah.
candlelight. But sometimes when the budget is not where it should be for their inspiration and all of that, they think just doing candles is going to be more
Enough to-
More
price
frugal.
effective.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is not, because sometimes they want 100 candles on the table, and
Yeah.
it's not just a candle, it's the sleeve, it's a holder.
And that's gonna take me back to the baby's breath. There's a misinterpretation and it has nothing to do with candles, but I needed to mention
tell
that.
us.
There's a misinterpretation where people are like, okay, my budget is really small, which is fine. Like, that's not a problem, but we can just do baby's breath. And I'm like, okay, to achieve that look of that beautiful cloud you want floating,
Right.
you have to have a couple hundred bunches of baby's breath. You're gonna end up paying pretty much the same you would pay for roses or any other flowers. So I think
And the same with
back
the
to your-
candles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, that we have to overcome in this industry. And, obviously it's nice that there's so much inspiration out there for people to pull from. But the problem is when they look at things for inspiration, they don't realize what it takes to get to that point and the logistics of things. And like we've talked about that where, and you're saying like if the flowers aren't in season, like, maybe we can get them, but what's that price going to be? And how many additional, staff does it take and all the things that go into the, behind the scenes things that people don't realize. They're like, they just see, show up and see the
beauty.
finished
The
The
product.
beauty, the last 30
and don't-
minutes, pretty
The
much.
Exactly.
glitz and glam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
They don't see us sweating.
I get to see a little bit of
Yeah.
it, doing the photo
Yeah.
video, but most of the time, it's close to being done
Yeah.
when we show up to do photos. So we
Correct.
don't.
It's
you
mostly
know,
details.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
don't know the days.
And the worst part
weeks
has
of-
already passed.
Right.
Yeah, the
yes.
messiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I think that's like, just an awesome opportunity to be able to kind of share the behind the scene details of like what it takes to put on, especially when you're talking about doing stuff out of state, the logistics of moving all that. And so, I think a lot of times the clients just don't understand, or even other vendors probably don't really
Yeah, I think it's even
understand
vendors
what
don't even
the other
understand
people
sometimes.
do too. So it's like,
Like
that's
yourself,
fascinating.
you're not seeing the behind the scenes of that. I mean, you see your own, but I don't know that we all think about it from a perspective of everybody's different you know,
The challenges
position.
and
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay, we've reached my favorite part.
Wow.
What is it?
All right.
It's a vendor confession.
Already.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a safe space. Okay. This is your chance to treat it like therapy.
Judgment-free zone, right?
Yeah, this is a judgment-free zone. But we would love to know something that you would like the world to know, essentially, or that you would like to confess that is frustrating for you.
Okay. I
And
was
safe
just
space.
Okay. I was just talking to Jacob about this a couple days ago. But I'm just gonna say it out
Okay.
here.
Say it.
I'll
We've
just
got
say
it.
Off
you
your
know, a
chest,
single
good.
phrase, and you guys can interpret it as you know.
I'm scared.
Just say it will be a secret. Just say it.
When the Pinterest board doesn't match the budget,
Yes.
that's
It's hard.
it's a
hard.
problem for me. Not a
yeah.
problem. Let me clarify.
No,
it's hard because again, the
Yeah.
educational part comes in again. You have to like educate them on what they can get.
I
when.
spend so much time on the front end educating. It's honestly how this podcast started.
Yeah.
Is I really felt like there was no education for any weddings above, I don't know, 50,000, right? Like 50,000 below, there's tons of DIY stuff and tons of, you know, how to manage it. But I think for me, it's like when you got to 50,000 or realistically 100,000, you know, people are like, oh, I can have whatever I want.
Yeah.
And they're looking on Pinterest and they don't know. It's not their fault.
Yeah,
But they're
totally.
looking on Pinterest. There's no prices. And it could be Pinterest. It could be Instagram. It could be
And
anything.
I think social media also has a huge
Correct.
influence.
Yes.
in that.
And AI has a huge
Oh
influence
yeah,
as well.
that's a new thing for us.
Yes.
I'm like, okay,
That's an AI photo. I literally
here
say
it
that
comes
100
again.
times a day.
Comes again.
Another AI picture
Yes.
And they
that's
don't
not
see it.
realistic.
They don't see
And they
it.
don't see it, but you
Yeah.
see this funky looking bloom. And it's like, what is that?
Yeah.
And then you realize it's AI.
Yes.
And they
Yeah.
think
It's
we
real.
can achieve that. It's
Right.
like,
Yes.
Yeah.
I personally just feel like they look at these, you know, images from these different places, and they're saying to themselves, "Oh, I want this," but they don't understand how expensive that one table is, and now you need to replicate that by,
Yeah.
you know.
10 times.
10
time,
times
yeah.
maybe, you
Yeah.
know, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so that's why we started this, because I do feel like there is no education for that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I get a ton of weddings from a particular venue in St. Pete, and they come and they've said, "Okay, I have $100,000." Well, you spent your $100,000 already. Like, the venue was it. You have no room for anything
Yeah.
else. And so I felt like there needed to be a way to educate, and that's why and Amanda, I think, is the same way too. Like, we under deliver our design boards because the AI is killing
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Like, that's not realistic.
Yeah, it all started with
expectations.
social media. I think social media has created like, you know, different expectations
Yeah.
for, you know, our most clients that are not really, you know, realistic,
to their budget.
but not
sure.
correct. And now AI, it's just
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
what's next?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
you mentioned we were talking with Amanda. She was saying how like she hates using it for mock-ups because it doesn't show like there's going to be a cord here or this plugged in.
No,
or
it
other things.
it
and
could
doesn't
also
show
be
you, like,
contradictory in a way to what you're actually delivering.
Yeah.
Because AI might make it look like something extraordinary, and then when you put it into the real numbers, like, you know, talking about budget and
Yeah.
Yeah,
and-
you
and-
can't do that much draping, or you
Right.
can't have that
Yeah.
sofa
So
like
I
that.
think there's like a fine line where we have to be, you know, careful with what we're promising and what it's actually getting delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
Okay.
think you guys do a good job with that. Though.
Mostly
Thank
for
you.
us because this is a craft, and it's not plastic. It's a real flower. Yes, it is fresh cut, but it is a real flower. Not all the flowers are gonna look the same.
Yes.
Not all the hydrangeas
so
look
true.
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all the
Size and color.
The shades
like,
are
so many
different.
things can change
And it's
depending on the
hard.
season.
when you do something in AI, the arrangement is beautifully,
Right.
like perfectly white.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
we have no
And that's why I
pure
love a
white
good table
roses
set.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A table mock-up, you can see it in person.
Yeah.
That's why I love those. I almost,
love those
I,
too,
I
'cause
actually
it's
just pretty
just,
much
you know,
require it.
Yeah.
Sets the record straight for what's getting delivered.
Yes.
But going back to the Pinterest board, it's just hard sometimes because you don't want to disappoint the
Yeah.
client. I know this is their dream Pinterest board. This is what they want, but also it's like we cannot do all of it. At least not all of it. We have to pick
Yeah.
what really matters to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find a good balance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that probably kind of plays into like we've been talking a lot about this, and it's been going around on social media where people think that because it's a wedding,
Yeah.
it's more expensive.
That's-
And just because it has the word wedding, you
No,
know, whatever,
yeah.
then you're charging more or whatever. But
No.
it's not. It's just because, you know, the amount that it takes to get to what they
Yeah.
see or want, and it just keeps getting more and more and more. And it's like there's so much more involved. So I think that's what's awesome about being able to educate people. Like, no, we're not upcharging because it's a wedding.
Yeah.
It's an incredible amount of time and
work.
staff and work
Labor,
that goes into deliver this. So.
Absolutely.
And when there's a wedding when there's a wedding involved, it requires more logistics, more planning, more labor,
More emotion.
emotion. So it's not the same as
That's why I
me.
love to like have a little corporate event here and there because it's refreshing. You're like, okay, I'm not dealing with personals. I don't have to go to church like to set up flowers. It's just drop the flowers and go.
That's why we do a mix.
Yeah, I love that.
I love weddings, and I love seeing that and being a part of those moments. But I also love a birthday party. I love a corporate event.
Exactly.
I love a Christmas party. I love, all of those things mixed together.
Celebrations,
From a creative aspect, I love it because I get to keep, having different.
And you stay refreshed.
You stay
'Cause
refreshed.
Sometimes like when you're, stay on the weddings lane for so long, it takes a toll on you.
For sure.
Because you're dealing with, like I said before, feelings and personalities and egos and.
And the wedding timelines are wild.
Wild. What you're trying to accomplish in a
The
day.
wedding timeline is wild.
Yeah.
And having weddings back to back to back to back, it just takes a toll on you.
Yeah, it really does.
It's a commitment for sure.
Yeah.
And I think especially people too, like, we have families, so I don't think people realize too, like, a lot of time, like when, I was heavily into weddings, I was gone almost every weekend.
Yeah.
And so when our boys are in school full time, like the weekends were the only time we had family time. So that really played, a big part in me deciding to back off on the weddings and pursue the corporate more and corporate events and things like that. 'Cause,
Yeah.
it is it's a big commitment. So it's a lot of time involved, and so you definitely have to be passionate
You
about
have
it.
to.
Love
You have
what
to be
you
crazy.
do.
You have to
Slightly
totally
crazy.
You have to be
Love it.
crazy.
Yeah, and be a little crazy.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
thank you both for joining us
thank you
today.
for having us.
It
Thank
was
you for
so
having us.
lovely.
Such a great
And you
conversation.
look fabulous.
Thank you guys
Very
too.
fashionable.
Very
Yes.
fashionable. But we
Thanks.
really appreciate you coming and being on
Thank
here
you.
and helping us, present this information to everybody.
Thank you guys for having us. This was
Absolutely.
so much fun.